Now, I want to talk a little bit about a UFC fighter, and I don't want to throw him under the bus because being a UFC fighter, being a professional MMA fighter, is probably very very hard. I say probably because I'm not one myself. I'm into fighting a little bit, so I get a little taste of it, and I find what I'm doing to be very very hard. So I can only imagine what it's like to be a professional UFC fighter, a professional MMA fighter who lives off of fighting and probably has to do lots and lots of other work. So anything with respect to me commenting on fighters and so on is not to throw them under the bus because I respect what they do too much. Having said that though, Reinier de Ridder, who recently fought at UFC 326 at the time of this recording, lost to Kaya Bajalio. And it looked like he didn't want to be inside that cage, to be honest. I don't know why or what happened, really. He didn't look as fatigued as he did in his last fight against Brendan Allen up in Canada, but he didn't look good. And it wasn't like a very close decision either. Now, the scorecards were a little bit too wide, excuse me, for my opinion. I don't believe that Kyle Bajalio won all three rounds, but certainly he won 2 rounds to one, I think it's fair to say. Regardless, there was an interesting case in the build-up, because I watched some of the documentaries, the pre-fight build-ups. They're called UFC 326 Embedded, or just UFC X, where X is the number of the event, Embedded. They're worth a study to see when it comes to the body language and the attitude of the fighters. Here's what I saw. I saw Kyle Bajalio being very, very focused, very, very determined, very, very locked in, zoned in his zone. On the other hand, I saw Reinier de Ridder joking around, messing around, sort of like just being on some sort of a holiday. And at the end of the holiday, he was going to, I don't know, do some spectacle, perform in some way. That's what I saw. I saw them, the two opponents several times crossing paths. Most of the times, they said hi to each other and were respectful. But every single time it appeared like Kyle Bajalio just sucked out the energy of Reinier de Ridder. I might be wrong. That was just the atmosphere that I got. That was the mood, the overall vibe of any of those encounters. And so there was a scene where Reinier de Ridder was reflecting on his upcoming fight. And he said something very, very interesting. He said, yeah, I got 2 more days of playing games, and then there are no more games. And just looked dead serious into the camera. Now, that caught me a little bit off guard, because he all of a sudden changed mood. He was locked in. It was a massive sudden change, like he really, really meant it. And then you just taste the words that he's using. He's talking about playing games, and then saying that how there's no more games. And that's fine, but why would you allow yourself to even play games? Because if I were a fighter, I wouldn't have regarded what I'm doing a game. I wouldn't. It wasn't something that I'm playing. It would have been my job, what I do for a living. And also because I can get hurt and the other guy can get hurt and I can sustain life-threatening damage or life-lasting damage or injuries, I'm certainly not going to regard it as playing games. And I'm not even going to talk about it in that way. That way of hypnotizing yourself into thinking that this whole thing is a game. And I know I'm probably putting words in his mouth. That's not my intention. It's just to theorize and speculate on the usage of words. Because words mean something. Words are power. They really are. Words are power. Voice is power. Body language is power. Posture is power. Persuasion is of course power, but in this case, let's talk about the words. Because it isn't a play. And it was never a play. Now, I don't know Reinier de Ridder that well, so maybe that's how he behaves normally. I don't know. My advice to him would be to stop and to be more locked in, be more zoned in, Don't care about your opponent's feelings or whatever. You're going to fight to the death. Almost. Come Saturday night. I mean, you're going to try to violently knock each other out in wearing just your underwear in front of millions of people. So, of course, you don't care what he or she is thinking, right? Basically, the entire lesson of this video is just to let you know how words mean something and that they can lead to your ultimate detriment. If you want to learn more about persuasion and power, of course, and sales for business, get subscribed to my email list. The link to do so is in the episode description wherever you're watching and or listening to this, and I'll see you there.